Mark Carney was just destroyed in a new poll. Are more Canadians finally realizing that they were subjected to the greatest gaslighting operation in Canadian history last year? We'll talk about that. Plus, new data from Statistics Canada is revealing something shocking, that there is a mass exodus with Canadians fleeing the country at record levels not seen in 74 years. As Liberal policies continue to cripple Canada and its economy. However, there are still Canadians who support Carney, and there is this new clip of a Carney supporter going around the internet, and oh boy, you need to see this for yourself. I'm Elie Cantin-Nantel. Welcome back to the podcast. If you watch this show regularly, you may notice my background's a bit different. That's because I'm traveling and I'm staying with some family who has some interesting art. And I just had to record this video because this news is way too breaking. If you haven't already, be sure you are subscribed, as up to 80% of my viewers are not yet subscribed. I'm trying to hit 25,000 subscribers. Be sure to hype and like the video, hit the notification bell, and consider getting a paid channel membership for less than $5 a month, as I'm one of the only journalists left in Canada who refuses to take subsidies from the federal government. Journalism commentary 1 year anniversary.
I don't believe journalism being funded by the government is the solution.
You have to rebuild the foundation. You have to retell the stories.
Other news that actually matters.
I hence wanted to ask. I think they should answer their questions, especially if they're politically charged.
Part 1, New Poll Destroys Carney. So Gad Saad, he is a Canadian professor and author who's written several books, and he's become an internationally recognized figure as a result of these books. He put out a tweet to his audience of over 1.3 million followers on X, that include a large number of Canadians, and he asked them this very simple question. Has Mark Carney improved your lives? And this is how people responded. 6.6% said yes, and 93.4% said no. And there were over 13,000 people who participated in that poll, which is a pretty large sample size. The comments weren't much better for Carney. Here's Cat Canada, who I highly recommend you follow on X if you don't already. He had improved his Brookfield investments, and most recently, he improved the business position of his condo development buddies by handing them out a $1 billion bailout. That's in reference to the condo bailout, which we will get to a bit later in this episode. Another user, is Mark Carney destroying us more slowly than Trudeau? That seems to be the measure for Liberal success. WTF do terms like at pace means? For Pete's sake, give us real targets. This doesn't even make good word salad. It's word cabbage without dressing. Another person said, the only silver lining is he may result in 20 years of conservative rule. And I mean, I definitely hope that will be the case. And this person asked a rather interesting question. Has any politician in the recent decade improved everybody's lives? Are people's lives objectively better economically under Trump than it was under Biden or Obama or even Trump's first term? Fair question. I mean, under Trump's first term, he did make the economy better for Americans, especially the middle class in America. And when I was in America ahead of the 2024 election, I was asking people if they were better off under Biden or Trump, and they all said Trump. And Canada, in my opinion, also did better under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Now, you may be wondering, why am I talking about a Twitter poll? Well, here's why. First of all, Dr. Saad has a very large audience, and this question is not a partisan question. It's not, do you like Mark Carney? It's not, did you vote for Mark Carney or will you vote for Mark Carney? It's, has your life improved under Mark Carney? And the reality is that you can not like a politician and still recognize that you're doing okay. For example, I've never liked the BC NDP, but I can recognize that during the pandemic, they were actually the only provincial government in all of Canada that never shut down retail stores once. They never told retail stores you're essential or non-essential. They kept restaurants and gym open much longer than, let's say, Ontario. Now, they did have other bad restrictions. Obviously, there was the vaccine mandates later on, the church closures that didn't support that. But you can give credit to a government you don't like when they do something you appreciate. For example, letting mom and pop stores stay open rather than shutting them down to bring all the competition to Walmart, which was what Ontario's Premier Doug Ford did. But in this case, almost 100% of people said they are not better off under Mark Carney. And this poll was open to everybody. Liberals could have voted in it too. So while we shouldn't take this as a gold standard of public opinion, it does reveal that there are a lot of Canadians who do not feel like Mark Carney has improved their daily lives. And we will get into more of that in part 2 when we talk about the record number of Canadians who are fleeing the country after 10 years of Liberal rule. But before that, let's look at the polls that are conducted by pollsters. And there is a little trend that we're starting to see that I think is worth highlighting. So let's look at 338 Canada, that's the polling aggregator. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Mark Carney is still high in the polls, and the Conservatives are in second place. But we have seen a small dip in support for Mark Carney. The peak honeymoon appears to be over. So, from the seat projections, the high on May 10, 2026 was 221 seats for the Liberals and 94 seats for the Conservatives. Fast forward to today, on June 28, 2026, the Liberals are down to 207. The Conservatives, 102. So a small increase for the Conservatives and a small decrease for the Liberals. As for approval ratings, the approval rating of Mark Carney is also decreased. It was at 60% on March the 8th, 2026, while only 32% disapproved of Mark Carney. I'll be honest, I have trouble believing this, but that's what it says. While today, 56% of Canadians approve Mark Carney, so down 4 points, and 35% disapprove, that's up 3 points. Now, that is not a humongous change, but it is a change that is in the wrong direction for the Carney Liberals. So much so that even Rachel Gilmore, the left-wing TikToker, pointed this out. What's funny is that Rachel Gilmore is now criticizing Mark Carney, but before the election, she was tweeting out stuff like this. I gotta say, I am in fact detecting some Riz in Mark Carney. For those who don't know what Riz means, it's kind of a cool charisma vibe, basically. And that's what she was saying about Carney ahead of the election. So it looks like there are people on the left who aren't happy with Mark Carney. Now, you may wonder, what are the things that are going to bring Mark Carney down? I think he's already done a lot that is demonstrable of a failure of leadership. I'm very concerned about the censorship legislation. That is not what's at the top of mind of Canadians. What's top of mind for Canadians is the economy, and unfortunately for too many, also Donald Trump. But Mark Carney's not doing well on either of those fronts. We're recording this on June 28th, and there's still no deal for CUSMA, and the deadline's July 1st. It's been an absolute failure. The Mexicans have made progress. The Canadians had a deal in October, and they blew it up. But also, we're starting to see some financial scandals. Not only did Canada enter a technical recession, but Mark Carney announced a few days ago a bailout for condo developers. He said he would use taxpayer dollars to purchase 2,200 unsold condos in British Columbia. This will benefit wealthy developers, banks, and investors at the expense of the Canadian taxpayer. And what has come as a result of this is backlash from both the right and left. Mark Carney thought, because he is arrogant, that he was going to get away with this, that the media would help him get away with this, but he's caused bipartisan outrage here. The price of this scheme is $1.45 billion, and that's part of a larger $3 billion plan that he's announced with David Eby, which is why some people call it a $3 billion condo bailout. But the reception from this was so bad that even Mark Carney had to admit that he didn't do a good job at rolling out the project. What will be interesting to see is if there are any changes in the polls in the coming days and if the dip, this trend of decrease, continues. But in the meantime, there are still many Canadians who support Mark Carney, including this gentleman. Watch.
What makes you proud to be Canadian?
That I'm not American. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
And how do you feel about the direction of the country right now as a young Canadian?
Oh, we're fine.
Yeah, it'll all be okay.
No, we got Carney. It's all right. Our baseball team's good.
You think with Carney in leadership, we're in good hands?
Oh, yeah. I don't pay attention that much to the politics, so I'm all right. I don't know. I just go to work and go home. Like, it's not a big deal.
Stop it. Get some help.
You don't mind getting taxed up the ass?
I don't pay that much tax, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, I get like 15% off my paychecks. Fucking, we're not American. That's all I need. That's all I need.
I mean, my gosh. There are some people who are speculating that this is a skit, but I don't know anymore. because there are many Canadians who are brainwashed. I'm not American. Who does this? No other nationality defines themselves this way. The Americans are laughing at us as we are doing this. Our country's in decline, and we're bragging that we're not a country that is objectively, economically more successful than Canada. So much so that many Canadians are leaving to the US. And we'll talk about this in part 2 of the show, which is coming right now. Part 2, the mass exodus. So what's going on in Canada right now is you have two types of people. You have the people who support Mark Carney, and you have those who don't. And in the camp of those who don't, you have people increasingly that are saying, not only do I don't like Mark Carney and the Liberals, I no longer wish to be living under them. I no longer wish to be subjected to their incompetence, to their decline, to their policies, their ideology. I'm out. I'm out. That's increasingly happening according to Statistics Canada data. So according to the Canadian government's own data, and the Canadian government, as we know, is run by Mark Carney. Gad Saad, who we opened the show with, is one of these people. He is now teaching in the United States. Jordan Peterson, a friend of Gad Saad, also moved to the United States. And the list goes on and on and on. So this article here from Better Dwelling, Canadians are leaving at the fastest pace in 74 years. Quote, Canadians continue to flee in record volume in a trend that's picking up, not plateauing. Statistics Canada data shows emigration, when citizens or permanent residents move abroad, climbed again in the first quarter of 2026, with Canadians now leaving at the fastest pace in 74 years of record. So according to Statistics Canada, there were 30,092 immigrants in the first quarter of 2026. That is up from last year. And when you divide that by month, because a quarter is 3 months, that's 10,000 people per month leaving Canada. The article notes, this data is often conflated with Canada's intentional pullback of non-permanent residents, but they're a different issue. So that is separate data. In fact, we did see almost 200,000 non-permanent residents leave in Q1 2026, and that's very good. That's a very good thing. We don't need temporary foreign workers. We don't need massive amount of international students in the pulp mills. Good. Very good. That should continue. But what we're seeing here in those numbers are not that. These are Canadians that are leaving Canada. And this is in line with other data that has been found recently showing similar trends. So, for example, according to Bank of Canada research, roughly 40% of Canadians who rank in the top 1% of earners have left. And 30 to 50% of the people in the next 9 percentiles have also left. That is a lot of people leaving the country. Back in 2015, when Stephen Harper and the Conservatives were in charge, when you looked at Canadian-founded companies, so companies that are founded by Canadians, 70% were started in Canada and 23% were started in the United States. And fast forward to 2024, just 32% were started in Canada and 47% were started in the US. More Canadians are starting businesses in the US than in Canada after 10 years of the Liberals. According to a University of Waterloo survey, 71% of software engineering grads leave Canada for the US. This is one of the best engineering schools in the country, and their graduates are fleeing for America. And me personally, I believe this because earlier this year, my cameraman and I, we went to a college campus and we asked students if they would move to the US, and 80% of the people we spoke to said yes. And that's because Canada is no longer a viable or affordable place to live. It's a country in decline. It pains me to say this. I'm not saying this to bash on Canada. It's objectively true. The Canadian dollar has lost 30% of its value against the US dollar since 2008.
We're not American. That's all I need.
There was a time when the Canadian dollar was stronger than the US dollar. That's no longer the case. Canada has become poorer than Alabama.
We're not American. That's all I need.
Housing prices under Trudeau doubled. In large Canadian cities, you need $200,000 not for a home, which is what people used to buy homes for, but for a down payment for a home. And only the very, very rich can afford homes. Basic things have become luxuries. Violent crime rose by 40% between 2015 and 2022. And Canada now has more per capita violent crime than the United States. It's so bad that people, homeowners, are hiring private security for their homes, just like they do in third world countries.
We're not American. That's all I need.
Theft, petty crime has also exploded. You can't go to any store in Canada now without being subjected to anti-theft gates, to simple things like razor blades being locked up, makeup being locked up, even in some places, simple foods being locked up because of the stealing epidemic. Healthcare is a mess. You wait tens of hours in waiting rooms. Some people pass away in these waiting rooms. And in some provinces, up to 5% of the population is passing away using MAID.
We're not American. That's all I need.
And Canadians are being taxed to death. The typical Canadian pays 70% more income tax than the typical American, and the top tax rates in Canada in many provinces are over 50%, meaning that you get to a point where more than half your income is taken from you by the government.
We're not American. That's all I need.
And according to the Fraser Institute, a think tank, if the average Canadian family had to pay all the taxes it pays upfront at the start of the year, it would have to work until June to pay the total tax bill imposed on it by 3 levels of government, so by the federal, provincial, and local governments. That is insane. You basically have to work half the year before you can keep your paycheck.
We're not American. That's all I need.
So yes, things are not doing well in this country. And this is why I continue to believe that Mark Carney, a self-described globalist and elitist, a man that had 3 passports, a man that moved jobs from Canada to the US, is not going to be the one that's going to fix the economic state of Canada. And hopefully in the next few years, more Canadians will wake up to this. But we have a role to play. We have a role to play in educating people, in getting our voice out there, getting our opinions out there to educate more and more Canadians so that when the next election comes around, enough people have awakened to the fact that we are a country in decline and vote out of it. I believe it is possible to recover. Some people say the country's finished. I don't believe that. Look at Argentina and El Salvador. They were doing much worse in Canada, and they've been able to bounce back. Countries all over the world throughout history have been able to bounce back, and it is possible for Canada to bounce back. But we have to do our part if we want to see this happen. Otherwise, people will continue to move to the US. We will continue to lose our talent. We will continue to decline. And in that case, the end game is simply not one that we should even want to think about. And this sums up today's podcast episode. I want to know what you think, so put your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure you are subscribed, that you've hyped and liked the video, and hit the notification bell, and consider getting that paid channel membership for less than $5 a month. Until next time, God bless.